Good day, this is Gabriel from Sydney Supermoto Riders. Today we're going to show you what you need to do to your motorcycle to bring it onto the track. So what's the mandatory requirement? What's that lock wiring thing? What's that catch can thing? How do you do that? And what's involved in it? So here we have a 2012 KTM Supermoto. This is a carby bike. So we're going to talk first catch can. So the catch can here is located just at the back, if you can see it. This catch can holds fuel, oil and water. So fuel, this is all the hoses coming from the overflow of the carburetor down. We'll redirect all that into the catch can. Then we've got an overflow on the engine, on this particular engine here at the rear, but usually they're at the top. Redirect that so that it doesn't run into the airbox like they usually do now, but it runs into your catch can. And finally, water. So on the radiator, we've got a water overflow. That water overflow can run all the way to your catch can as well. And make sure that you drill an additional hole, I don't know if you can see it here, so it doesn't actually over pressurize your bottle. Okay, lock wire. So lock wiring is necessary for any part on the motorcycle that holds fluids, that is water, fuel, coolant. And also for dangerous parts, like i.e. brakes. So you start with here the water cap. So we drill the water cap here, run a cable through to a solid part of the motorcycle, so a frame. In this instance, it's a collar. If I had the choice, I didn't do this myself, I would actually run that to a solid part of the motorcycle, so on the frame. Worth noticing here, for those that don't know, you could actually wire to a clip and then use the clip to run through the hole. That's a lot easier because then it allows you to take it off and back on when you do services, etc. And you don't have to cut your wire and redo it all the time. Okay, so that's water at the top. Then we move to the bottom. So now we have our oil filter bolts. These need to be lock wired. You can lock wire them just the way they are done here. That is super tight, top to bottom. So there is no way that the top bolt can rotate left and create play. Or you can run them right to left, which is called positive lock wiring. That is when the bolt starts to turn left, the cable here is essentially tension instead of loosen. That's what is called positive lock wiring. Okay, you want to do your oil sump here as well. So two ways to do this. You can take your sump plug off, drill it, and then wire it, or buy an aftermarket one that's already drilled for you, which I would really recommend you do, because you'll break a few drill bits. Make sure that's lock wired to a solid part of the motorcycle. Okay, then moving on, we've got the caliper bolts at the front. So same thing, make sure they lock positively. This is actually an example to show you what not to do. This is not a good wire. What happens here is there is a drill on the top, there is a drill on the top. So the cable is essentially from the top of the bolt to the top of the bottom bolt. What happens is when this bolt is going to turn left, it's actually going to create more play on the cable, potentially allowing the bolt to turn more. That's not good. That bolt should have been, or that hole should have been on the right hand side, or it should have been bottom to top. Also, we've got now mandatory the oil fill cap here and the water draining bolt. There is a bolt on your engine here that allows you to drain and flush the water system. That needs to be drilled as well. This is not a clip, but this is actually a race clip here. These ones are good because you can actually close them and create a closed loop. So there is no way for this to come away, come out, whereas the other clip I showed you before could. You can get those online as well. I think there's a Perf company that sells them. So those two bolts are mandatory. And then if you want to, this is not mandatory now, you could also lock wire the pin. So if the pin ends up sliding out and your pads come out, that's a scenario that's not going to happen. So I will be doing that on this motorcycle as well. And finally, lock wiring is not mandatory for the rest of the motorcycle, but you're welcome to do it on critical parts like triple clamp bolts or your master cylinder bolts, for example. So if you have a crash or a tumble, they actually stays and you still have brakes. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video and see you soon on track.